think I actually had a pretty interesting childhood. My dad being self-employed, 100%. He ran his own construction company, building custom homes. So I think from a very, very early age, like I understand there's times as a business owner you have a lot of money, and there's other times where, hey, the cleaning lady doesn't come to our house anymore. Like you actually start to understand the ebbs and flows of business because you can just tell by your lifestyle. Now, we didn't go through extreme highs and extreme lows, but you could just tell there was fluctuation. So that was interesting because I think that's kind of ingrained in me where, ups and downs of money don't really affect me. I think potentially the same way they could someone else. And I would also say like understanding that time and money, the correlation, like my never was accustomed to a 9 to 5 schedule. So, my dad we'd work on Sundays together. We would be up every morning. We would be late at night at the, cleaning a house or, on a job site. And so you just kind of get this, feeling about how money is made. And it's not confined to just one way. It's more like an abstract, thought process. So I guess that was like, now looking back, how I viewed money. And my dad, thankfully enough, would teach me about, hey, this is what equity is, right? Like, can you tell me what equity is? Yeah, okay, it's how much you owe on right? He walks you through step by step what's interest rates, like why do credit cards charge so much? Like he did a very good job of explaining what's APR. And so I'm not going to say I was a financial expert by any stretch, but I did definitely know more than average, especially regarding real estate.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you got a lot more exposure to those type of topics than a traditional, kid growing up. Most people have zero idea what any of those terms mean. So, but being raised by somebody who was self-employed, entrepreneurial, and some of the attributes you just mentioned, some of those, I could think people not seeing them as necessarily a positive. Like, hey, we were working on Sundays, we were doing late nights, money ebbs and flows. Did those attributes, like, at any way, like, kind of push you away from thinking that's what you wanted to do? Or was it like clear to you at a pretty young age, like you kind of wanted to follow in a similar footstep and run your own business?
Yeah. So, I got into some entrepreneurial ventures early on that we won't discuss here, but I found ways creatively to make, and, it was things like flipping cars and, iPhones and, a bunch of different things like that, little side hustles to make money. And I actually wasn't very entrepreneurial minded. Like I didn't go to college thinking I'm going to start a business. Right? I had done some things to earn money up to that time, not with an employer on my own, but I really wasn't planning on starting a business. I know I wanted to make a ton of money and I wanted to work in real estate. Those are the only two things I knew. Everything else was a guess. And so I guess like to answer your question specifically, I was going to get into real estate and I didn't know how. And actually the first opportunity I got was a 9 to 5 style job with a publicly traded real estate investment trust in their real estate investment department. And so that's kind of what I gravitated to at first. So yeah, I mean, almost opposite. But I also had a dad that told me that, hey, I wish I would have had the opportunity to go to college, man. Like you should go, like take advantage, meet people, go work for the best companies. Like that was his, like, don't do what I do. Right. So he kind of pushed me a little bit more in that direction.
So while you're working at this.
Oh, I was saying like, yeah, use your brain instead of your hands type of thing. Right. Like that was kind of his mentality.
So while you're working at this public REIT, were you still doing the side hustle stuff? Were those happening simultaneously, or did you get the 9 to 5 job and then you're like, screw this, I want to go do my own thing? Or did you keep those, cell phone flipping, car flipping, random other side hustles while you were doing the full-time job as well?
No, so I tried to, I call it go legit, but I tried to get like a real job, like make money and like actually go to a company and learn and, get things like health benefits and, stuff like that. So, I did work for a company in college, a Fortune 500 Penske truck leasing actually. And so I wanted to get an idea of like, how do these corporations actually run and operate? So no, I let go a lot of those side hustles towards the end of college. But no, once I got the job and I moved to Tampa, Florida, That was with this company called Camden Property Trust. That's the REIT. And it was great. I mean, like, culture of that company and the founder, which I knew his son. I mean, everything about that company was amazing, except the 9 to 5 part. Like, I just couldn't do it, man. I was just like this. I'm like asleep in my car at lunch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just bored. Like, this is so boring. And, I started meeting other guys, and they were a little bit older. I was like 21 at the time. I started meeting some other guys that had been there, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And I started kind of probing what they're actually earning, right? What they're bringing in, what they're taking home. And I just wasn't willing to wait that long to make what they were making. So I decided that wasn't the route to go for me.
And is it okay to ask, like, at that time, you're say 21, like, how much were you making as an entry level position?
Oh, entry level. I mean, shy of like $60,000. Yeah, that's probably about 60 grand, I would say. And then what they were telling me was like $1.20, and I already did the math. I adjusted for inflation back in 2014, so like really like $1.65 is probably where they were at. But I think that was the top earner at the time, and he had been there for like 8 years. And I was just like, oh man, that's kind of a long time, So yeah. That was those are the numbers there.
And having that ebb and flow financial situation growing up, were you saving a really large portion of your income because you had that it's not always going to be there mentality? Like, one day the house cleaner's there, one day we have 2 cars in the driveway, next week we have 1. Were you saving a good chunk of that $60K, which then I'm sure became greater and greater as time moved on?
I had like $250 to my name at most of my college career. Like, you get a little big hit, $1,000, you think you're rich, you go to the bar. I mean, this typical college stuff. Like, I was never, I had to really force myself to become a saver. But and I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up. Like, you think like, it's so pointless to save $50. I might as well just blow it. It's pointless to save $500. I might as well just spend it. Like, who cares, right? Who cares? And one of the lessons I've learned over time is shavings make a pile. And so like my mentality around saving, and more particularly investing, right? When I say save, I mean invest. That has changed a lot since that time. But no, I mean, I was never saving for anything. I mean, saving for like Panda Express, like go out that night. Like that was pretty much it in college. Yeah.
And once you start making a salary, although $60,000 may not sound like that exciting to some people, but that's enough money to to live on and to save. Was there a point in time where that switch flipped? Like, what got you to change your mindset around, like, like you just said, the shavings make a pile?
Well, it's interesting. So when I got back, and I just wasn't going to do the 9 to 5 thing. I go back to Albuquerque, New Mexico, talking to my dad. He's like, you should get your real estate license. And I'm like, dude, are you serious? Because as a contractor and a home builder, he wasn't the most, can I say this? He wasn't the most fond of real estate agents all the time. He felt like he did a lot of work and got paid X, and they did not a lot of work and got paid X. So that's how I kind of grew up thinking. So I was like, man, you want me to like bake cookies and like put signs in the ground and stuff? Like, no thanks. And then he told me that, and this is where the salary comparison comes into play. He said, well, I just paid this agent $25,000. We just cut them a check yesterday. I said, 25,000, what? How much did you pay them? Why? And he explained, it was an agent who had a client who wanted to build a custom home. The custom home was going to cost about $1 million, and they paid him 2.5% to bring the client to them. Very common practice. And that's when the light bulb went off. I said, 25,000. If I could do one of those a month, now we're talking. Like this could go somewhere. And he explained, of course, if you're in the business and you're good at what you do, this is not an uncommon event, but it's not going to be your day one. So get ready to to earn your stripes in the business. But yeah, this is the type of money you can make as an agent for sure. And this is just scratching the surface. I remember him telling me that. So that's when my mentality really changed. Like, okay, I think this risk might be worth the reward here. Let's look at this license thing again. And then I ended up going through with it.
So did you get the license while you're still working this job at the REIT? And kind of playing it safe, or did you just up and quit? You had the Pen Express money to your name, and you're like, I'm gonna make this real estate agent thing work. Like, regardless,
No.
like, I got rent due next month, but I'm gonna figure this thing out.
No, so it's funny story. So I had no money, of course. I had like $1,000 maybe, and I was like, all right, I need $4,000, probably five. I need at least three. So I'm not going to sell drugs, and I'm not going to rob a bank. So how else am I going to get $3,000, like just in a very short period of time? And so a buddy of mine, his dad actually he's a head blaster at a explosive demolition company. It's called Westco. And long story short, what they do is they go around to not underground, on top of ground mine quarries all around the country, and particularly the Southwest. And they plant explosives and blow up the rock. And then, the aggregator comes in and digs it all out. But long story short, it's all explosive demolition. So that's what I did. I said, okay, that's what I'm going to do, because it pays $17 an hour. It pays time and a half for overtime. We work about 10, 12 hours a day, so you go overtime every single day. And some of the jobs are pretty dangerous, so you get hazard pay. And then also all of your meals and travel is paid for while you're out in other cities and whatnot. So like we would drive from Albuquerque to El Paso. That's 3 hours. And then back the same day, I'd get paid to be in the truck asleep for 6 hours. You know what I mean? Like, so the money stacked up. And I did that for about 3-4 months to get enough money to get my real estate license. And then once I had the cash, I was like, all right, time to get this done.
And now that you're going to get your real estate license and you're starting to enter that career, did you have kind of like a little bit of a social contract with yourself around like, okay, I'm gonna give myself this much time, and if I see this, then I'll stick with it. If not, then I got to cut bait and go back to the corporate world?
Yeah, money wise, I didn't really know what to expect. All I know is I wanted to make a lot of money, and I was too mature, and I didn't talk to enough people to even know what. Like, I was always just kick the door down, let's just do it. So I never really took the time to understand, how much people are actually making, and it's kind of hard to figure out. I mean, what do you do? Just ask someone how much they make? Like, I wasn't listening to podcasts. I wasn't like looking stuff up like I should have been. But I do remember this, is that there was a very specific time where I went to get hired by my first Remax. It was a Remax brokerage. And by the way, I didn't even know, this is how much I didn't know. I didn't even know. I thought Remax hired me. Like you traditionally go interview for a job and they say, okay, we'd like to select you as, that's how I thought. I didn't know I could go anywhere. I had no clue. I was like, oh, I got hired by Remax. I was so happy. And I remember though, being like, hey, qualifying managing broker, I really think I need some like consistent income. I'm a little nervous about the whole, eat what you kill type of business. And do you have any admin work or like anything I can do while I'm still here? Right. And it's funny because agents ask me this question all the time still. And he goes, look, I can pay you $15 an hour and you can do some admin work, but do you want to make $15 an hour? Or do you want to make 15,000 in one check? I was like, all right, well, what do you put it that way? 15 grand. And that's really what he pushed me intentionally. He said, dude, you got into this business because you want to make money. You want your time back. You want financial freedom. It's not here in the office work. That's not why you came here. And he kind of like reset that mentality for me. And then the first year, I pretty much went broke. I was already pretty broke, but I went really broke that first year. So money was not flowing in 2016, put it that way.
And were you doing anything wrong? Would you go back and do things differently, or was it just that you didn't have a book of business and you were just scrambling, door knocking, trying to get leads however you could?
What I think it was is that when you're at the time, at least my mentality was like, I'm kind of a competitive person. So when you're fresh out of college, you're trying to make it in the business world and you're broke as a joke and you're like kind of acting like you're in business. Like, I don't have any emails coming in. There's no one's calling me. There's no like appointments. And, I think it's tough when you're in that mentality. Like, you don't want to let people know you're really struggling. Like, and you don't want to let them know that you don't know what you're doing. And So I think I was just playing like in a reserved state, if that makes sense. Like not playing all out because I didn't want people to know I was desperate. Like I didn't want to call and knock on people's doors and tell them I'm in the business now. I was kind of nervous or I don't know, scared to do that. And that's where like the social contract or the contract, I can't remember, Justin, how you worded it, but that came into play about 6 or 8 months in the business when I was planning on quitting. And I asked myself the question, like, scale 1 to 10, you know what you're capable of. Where are you at in this whole endeavor? And the answer was like a soft 6. All right. And I was like, all right, it's time to go all in. And I kind of made a choice at that point to really just let go of any preconceived notions about what people thought of me. Like, I don't care. I need business and I'm going to go figure it out. And that's where everything changed. That's where a lot of progress started. But yeah, that's kind of the dynamic of the money side of that first year.
And what were some of those steps you took? I mean, did you go out and start, trying to find people who could mentor you and letting them know like, hey, I need some help here? Or like, what was it that you actually did differently after having that moment?
Yeah. So just like most people, a shiny object came around and it was commercial real estate, right? And I like the commercial real estate guys because they got the Rolexes, they got the Raptor trucks. Raptors were pretty new at that time, Ford Raptors. You got the Raptor truck. You go into their office, there's trophies and different like wild game hunts and bear rugs. And I'm like, yes, this is where I need to be. Like, these are the guys here. This is where I knew it. I knew it wasn't residential. It's commercial. And right before I quit is when I, gave myself the gut check, and I couldn't call my broker. I decided not to. I said, no, I can't do that. This is quitting. And when I said, okay, I'm going to make a change, it really like I committed myself to going back to the basics. I actually went to the sales meetings. I actually took the information and applied it. I actually said, you said, make a dial, call this person, do this, send this text. I just did it. Like I stopped thinking like, oh, I'm just going to do this or I don't know about that. Like I just took the instruction that was out there, the fundamental instruction that I thought I was too smart to apply previously. And I just started applying it. I know that sounds super basic, but it was literally that basic. I just started doing all the stuff that was tried and true and proven to work. That sounds like, oh yeah, like of course that, yes, because the basics are what works. And that once I did that, it all really went uphill from there in a really good way.
Isn't it crazy how I learned this too the hard way, where it's literally just doing the basics enough times, you're going to be successful. Like a lot of people think they see a really fit person, they're like, oh, what's the secret? Like, is it some secret meal they're doing? Is it some secret workout? They'll see someone who's successful. Is there some secret investment strategy? Did you get rich off a meme coin? It's like, no, you just put in the same consistent reps every single day, and eventually you're going to be successful. It's just, regardless of what you do, like you just keep chipping away. There's no way going to be going backwards. I want to ask you, Ramon, because I know you had just some crazy early success. At what point do you branch off and start your own brokerage at, was it 24? I remember reading.
Yeah. I mean, I applied for it when I was 23, but 24, it was, like August. My birthday was in July, but yeah, 24. To be honest, I didn't know better. And I really try to be that guy that does this for agents in my field now. I mean, I don't wish because everything works out the way it's supposed to, but it would have been nice if somebody who actually had real business intellect and how to successfully scale a company would have been like, hey, buddy, you're killing it, but you're not as good as you think. Like you're having that success because you're a hustler and you're going out and you're doing all this stuff, but there's a whole nother game you haven't been exposed to yet. I want to teach it to you. I wish someone would have done that. And really what it came back down to was being able to manage a P&L effectively and using real data to make your decisions. I wish it took me years to figure out that those are the two things that were missing, but I didn't know better because I just thought, hey, I'm leaving Remax. So, I guess I'm going to start my own thing then. And that's pretty much how it went. And plus, we wanted to do property management, which we did do, multifamily and single-family property management. We started that company. Remax wouldn't allow that, and a lot of brokerages at the time were anti-property management. So, the only other thing was to, and as you can see, like even to this day, I mean, it's had the shirts, we were always branding our own stuff. No one even knew we worked for Remax, or it didn't really matter much. So yeah, I just didn't know better, and so opened up the brokerage, and I thought, being the business owner is how I'm going to build an asset that I could sell one day, right? Like I want to build something that's tangible, that has enterprise value. I don't want to be the agent. I want to be the business owner. And so a lot of that logic, if that is considered logic, went into making that decision.
And one thing I don't know that we've ever covered on the show is that like is creating starting your own brokerage. So what are the mechanics like when you're going from being just a real estate agent to trying to start up your own brokerage?
So put it this way, the law was changing at that time. You only had to be licensed 2 of the last 5 years, and there was no sales quota. There was no performance threshold. It was just literally, did you have a license under another brokerage for 2 years of the last 5? That was the only criteria. That law has now changed, but I knew that, so I wouldn't be able to do it if the law had already changed, but I knew it was going to change. And so that's why I did it. And so number one is that now, and I say that example because I mean, a lot of the broker side of the business is liability, because the buck stops with you. Like it's your job to enforce like ethical fiduciary behavior and also following the actual laws and real estate commission protocol and laws that are in place in your state. Like it is your job to facilitate those throughout your company. So if you don't know those, it's pretty tough, right? I mean, my knowledge was it was good, but it wasn't great. So number one, knowing the legalities and like how to handle it, because what ultimately happens, and this is just painting the full picture here, is if there's a real estate commission complaint, an investigator from the real estate commission is going to subpoena every shred of documentation that you have available for that transaction. And if they find any fault on you or your agent, it comes back down to you. And when I say and I had one that ended up with nothing. It was a complete fishing expedition, but they have to investigate, complaints, right? And yeah, they want, text messages. Hey, I drove to this house. I promise I went there and talked to them. Okay, there's no proof. Do you have like your Apple Maps show you went there? Like they're literally getting down to every detail. And if they find that you did something that wasn't, in line with the real estate commission laws or state laws, it ends up in fines, ends up in, different things that aren't good. So knowing the law, I had to like express that. That's crucial. Second is you don't really realize when you're at a brokerage, all the mechanics that go into the management of accounting and finance. If you have a big brokerage, there's months where we had, close to $1 million come in. And then you have to make sure that you're distributing that the right way throughout all the agents, all the splits are correct, the fees, the taxes, the gross receipts tax, and depending on what state you're in. So there's a lot of accounting side to it. And then the other one is if you're opening a brokerage and you don't want to be the top producer, really creating a value-packed experience for people that want to come work for you. You got to create a good value prop, right? And then deliver on it. It's one thing to present it on the the little sheet, but it's another thing to deliver it in real life. So those are probably the 3 big ones that are the mechanics of like what it really takes to hold a brokerage together and keep adding agents.
So you become a top agent at Remax, open your own brokerage, you start recruiting other people. What are some of those strategies? What are maybe some of those qualities that you're looking for in a person? I guess, like, what does the training regimen look like? Because obviously you knew what it took to be successful. You did it yourself. But then how do you go and take those same strategies, those same lessons, and kind of imbue them on other people?
Yeah, sure. Did you guys ever, I noticed your podcasts have been running since 2018. Does that sound about right?
That is right. Yeah. August 2018.
Yeah, I was doing my homework last night. I saw one of my friends, Craig Kirlop, was one of your first like interviews. But I bring that up because I was actually listening to a gentleman by the name of Andy Frisella, his podcast called the MF CEO Project. And honestly, that's where I learned probably, I'd say 80% of how to grow like a culture in your business. And it was just what you said, right? That was the whole playbook was, hey, what are all the attributes and characteristics that you feel like got you to this point that you could help instill in other people and create a culture around that attracts people to your business and keeps them there? that was really where I learned how to do that. And so I think that was the explanation of how did you like teach other people to do that is, well, you kind of design a foundational approach to how you view the business and how it should be done. And you find other people who agree or want to do business in that same fashion. And all the technical stuff, there's a lot of technicals in real estate. But once you all buy into, hey, this is where we want to go, and this is the way we want to behave on the way there, that behave part, that's how we would produce other successful agents and really like take what I know and put it into them.
Maybe just to give the listeners a sense of, how this journey's going. So you've gone from Remax, you've started your own thing. What was year one like as running your own business? Like, how successful was it? What was your, when you looked back after that first year, how were you feeling?
Yeah. I mean, I know you guys, like I saw in the show notes, we wanted to get down to numbers. So I'll give you guys some numbers that like I thought were pretty cool. So first year, 2016, 0. I mean, it washed out 100%. I had to take a loan out for my dad for like 10 grand. And his only stipulation was pay it back when you don't even know you paid it back. Like pay it back when 10 grand, you could lose it in your bank account. You wouldn't even know. So I paid him back a year from that day to give you any idea. We were making pretty good money. I almost 10x'd the income that I was at the 9-to-5 job, net profit.
Wow.
2017. Yeah. I mean, I did, talking to friends and friends of friends and people that I knew that had pretty good paying jobs. I mean, Deloitte, PwC, Salesforce, I mean, you name it. And, I was probably between 5 to 10x their salaries. So that gave me a really good head start in 2017, 18. From there, our brokerage was usually sitting somewhere around like $2 to $6 million a year in revenue. That was 2018, 19, 20. So, financially, the first year of like really running a business was 2017, I would say. And I learned a lot because, you kind of get in this mentality when there's so much money coming in. And when I say so much, like at the time, it was just like I'd go get a car loan and they were like, no, that's how much you make in a year. How much do you make in a month? And I'm like, no, that's the month, right? Like it was that type of stuff but what happens is you make mistakes because you're not thinking so much about every dollar that comes out of your business. The whole point of that dollar is to produce at least another dollar, right? Like that. So every dollar should produce a revenue. So, but you're not thinking that way. When you're like, it's, whatever, it's growth, we're growing. And so I never really got tested about my ability to manage a P&L effectively and know what expenses really matter and which ones were just vanity or fun or just BS, right? So the first couple of years were honestly great. I probably could have been more profitable because, expenses, we weren't really worried about that. But it wasn't until 2023 that I really got tested my ability to understand how do you keep a company growing when your when your worst month becomes your best month. Like that actually happened. And that was we could talk about that for a whole nother pot show, but that was the kind of the trajectories. Everything was uphill 2017 all the way until 2023 and things really changed. But yeah, the first years in business were great. I mean, made some great investments, flipped real estate, bought real estate. It was awesome.
So I know at some point you start diversifying. You just talked about flipping and buying. I also know you started the BAM media company, or at least you helped co-found it. I'm not exactly sure how that all worked out and when that came to be, but when did you start diversifying? Like how long were you just focused on growing the brokerage, and then when did you start to diversify into other businesses and assets?
Too early would be the right answer. Too early. Definitely, I know myself better now than I did then. I am a person who thrives off of new ideas, who thrives off of like, business models that you didn't even know existed. And what could be. I love, that's like my favorite thing to talk about is, land on Mars missions, right? And at the time, I ended up we founded an independent insurance company 2 property management companies, our real estate brokerage. We were buying real estate. We were never big in flipping. It's just me. It's just a lot of work and like hope to get paid. And so we did a little bit of that. But I mean, next thing you know, it's like you're talking about expanding your insurance company nationally. We had like an actual energy drink line called Battle Tested Energy that we were launching. Thank God COVID
That's
happened
awesome.
because thank God COVID happened because I would have launched it and probably would have lost all my money in that. But the whole manufacturing side of the business during that time slowed down. Prices went haywire, so it just wasn't a good time. But the point I'm trying to make is that if I could have gone back, I diversified too early, and I don't think the money that I took out of my main business actually made a higher return in the other like diversifying than it would have if I just would have kept using it to continue to grow my main asset. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I probably would have done it a little bit different. And I tell agents this a lot. I reference agents because it's primarily the money conversations I have with real estate agents. And everyone wants passive income, right? I want passive income. And I'm always like, well, what do you really want though? Like, do you want the 200, $300 a month, right? And a property management company and hopefully you net positive on it. I understand the tax side and all that, but just talk about income. Is that what you want? Or do you want to make like an extra 50 grand this year? Just curious. And like, what would be more impactful for you? And they're like, well, shoot, if I can make an extra 50 grand, I'm like, well, let's look at your real estate business. Those same funds you might apply on a down payment on a property. Like, what if we use that to grow your business? And so it's just kind of this balance where, and again, everyone has their different philosophy, but I always looked at like diversifying as like growing when really at the time, just continuing to funnel all of my stuff and all of my income back into my active income probably would have made me more money at the end of the day when all said and done. So yeah, I just want to give that example, but that diversifying and getting distracted way too early.
So you had, these 5 solid years early on in the brokerage, and then like you mentioned, 2023 comes along. I think we see that a lot across real estate, where there was several years there where, not to say that you weren't making good decisions, but a lot of people like kind of couldn't miss for a while there with real estate. And then 2023 comes along, and it sounds like that really tests you. What were some of the things that you realized you had to change in order to survive?
That's a good one. Yeah, couldn't miss is how 2021 and 2022 felt. I like that. I think I had to change. Really understanding where our business came from. And I know that sounds kind of silly saying it out loud, but like at the end of the day, really understanding like if I took away all the different bells and whistles and things that like, what is our actual core business, right? And what are the things that truly matter impact wise that impact growing our core business? I had never been challenged to think that way before. And ultimately what I mean is you have to look at your P&L and start understanding like what is necessary, what is kind of necessary, and what just doesn't even matter. And you only keep what's absolutely necessary, and understanding what is necessary to continue to grow your business or at least stay, stable with income. That was something I had to change about myself, is how I viewed those things. I'm pretty impatient and I want to just do it. And so having to like reserve that about myself was a challenge. I would say the other thing too was, and along that same note, is just double checking all your numbers. I mean, hey, if we typically spend, and this is a real number, $75 a month in like toiletry and like napkins and stuff for the office. Okay, we spent $150 last month. Why? Like, I actually want to get down to the bottom of the mystery of the double the cost of paper towels. Like, I want to know why that happened. And it wasn't because I truly want to do that or actually care. It's because, well, that translates to everything else. And so really like every last expense, understanding like what are we spending and why, and from $75 all the way up to, 75,000, whatever it might be. So really learning that concept was important for me.
And so now, halfway through 2024, how have some of those changes gone? Like, what things have you looked at or identified on the P&L and other pieces of data that you then went and made like a concrete change in the company and how it was run?
We have a saying in our company now that is data, not drama. And we made a commitment because this is what I was talking about. Like, where is your business coming from? Well, usually past performance is the best indicator of future performance, right? And so if you don't have your past performance tracked, how the heck do you know what to do going forward? It's a guess. And I never wanted to be in that position again. I was like, this isn't good. I don't want to be guessing at what I should do here. And so we made a commitment with our technology and our data. We track everything. Everything is tracked. Like you're not logged. Like, you want to make phone calls and text messages. If you don't log it in our CRM, I can't work with you. You can't work with our company. And that's different for a lot of people. But I mean, everything is tracked, and it's all because when we look back, we know what activities led to what results. Like I could tell you how many phone calls right now to this minute have been made in our company since 9 a.m. this morning, whenever people started making calls, and getting very granular with our data. That was a change that we made, and I feel so much better, not just the way I feel, but I can see on the income, I can see the leadership. Like it just gives so much clarity at where to put your time, energy, and resources. So that was a big one that we've completely done. I would call that a 360, not even a 180, a 360 on that end. And then on the P&L, just a lot more profitable. I mean, bottom line, like we just look at, only thing we care about at this point are total income, which in real estate we call GCI, right? Total GCI, net profit, units, volume, whatever other metrics are out there. I don't care. How much money we bring in, what do we net profit? Those are the two things I'd say like have been the most impactful, and they're going great. I mean, we're having a very good year this year.
And on a more personal front, like you've had a lot of really good years. It sounds like a lot of extremely high income years. What continues to like push you? Like, do you have a concept of a finish line? Is enough? Like, what is it that you kind of keeps you going?
Man, I mean, I don't have really a good answer for that, honestly. I think it's just I've been very lucky to have like a couple people who have mentors in my life that have given me some really good advice, but not really given me the advice. It's just allowed me to be around them and in their presence and learning and watching how they speak, what they do, how they use their time. It's been eye-opening. And going right back to the example I gave you about, like, I wish someone would have come into the business and say, hey, you're good and you're talented, but you're not that good and you're not that talented. Like there's a game that's being played here, and until you learn it, the success game, and it comes in money, it comes in time, it comes in leverage, all the different components of how you actually keep growing your net worth. Having someone and watching people that are doing that actively that I get to learn from, I think that's what keeps me excited, because I can see, like, I can feel it for somebody else. And it's, again, the possibility is like, well, what could it be? What could it turn into? And then once you understand that nobody really gets to skip a step, right? Social media makes you feel like, people are skipping steps and you're not, like you're going the long way around. The long way around is the shortest way home. And so once you like understand that, and you're on your own journey, and like you have real people with real things they've built, with real assets, with real knowledge that you're taking it from, I rest assured that I know if I stick with this, like who knows what it could turn out to. And that concept of who knows, where could it go, I think that's what keeps me most excited. And the progress we're making, right? So yeah, I think that answers that question.
I love that. Another question, somewhat related, is how do you think about balance? Because candidly, I have a very similar mindset to what you were just talking about, and I struggle a lot when I see someone who's doing better than me, but I'm like, you know what? I think I could get to that level. And sometimes I'm just overworking, and I notice, I turn around, it's 9 p.m., I'm still on my laptop, and I'm like, I don't need this extra money. I love the game. I love business building. I love trying to get to that next level, but not at the expense of my health, my family, my friends, all the important stuff in life that's not money related. So how do you think about and kind of carry a balance in your life where it's not just all business, you have time for the other stuff too?
It's a very it's a hot topic, right? The balance and all, of work and life. And, I mean, I've kind of accepted I just do what feels good. And, sometimes I am on my laptop till 10 and I'm having a blast. And there's other nights where I like to start watching documentaries and just wait and everything I'll take care of in the morning. I really do what feels good. But you know what I've noticed though is that that the more leverage I've applied to my business and my life, right? Like I've gotten so much of my time back that I get to use that time on the things that I actually am excited to go do. So like, for example, you take your home life, right? Like, all the food I ate today, my entire gym routine, the house being clean, my landscaping, my utility bills, like my vehicle getting washed, it's all on autopilot. Like I don't have to put thought into that anymore. And you take some of those things from your business and you look at like how much leverage you have in your business. Are you working so much because you're doing, $15 an hour tasks all day? Or is it because your workload is truly that large? You have to ask yourself that. So like delegating and hiring out leverage has been a game changer for me, where you do have to kind of go through that, like you feel a little guilty phase. Like, I don't have anything to do. No one's calling me. This is weird. Well, sometimes just staying the path is what you need to do. Like, you don't have to have chaos or create new things. Like, it feels weird because you're like, well, I'm not working. This isn't like not being productive. Well, that's you telling yourself you're not being productive. So I don't know if I answered that question, but leverage, understanding like, am I doing stuff that honestly I should be having somebody else do, hiring that out, and then understanding that like chaos can be an addiction, and it really can. Like I've absolutely 100% guilty. I love the thrill of chaos, but that doesn't always translate to good business decisions. And so trying to limit chaos in my life and not feel guilty when I'm not overwhelmed by it.
You just mentioned the word, delegation, and I'm just curious to give the listeners another one of those data points. Now, at this point in the business, on a given week, how many hours do you feel like you're having to put in to kind of keep this thing running optimally?
So let me put it this way. I don't even know, but I'll give you a quick example of what my week looks like. All right. And Monday and Tuesdays are meeting days. They are 100% blocked, scheduled with whether it's our leadership team, whether it's, we're doing some type of business transact, like whatever it might be. Someone wants to meet with you. It's like, okay, 15 minutes on this day. That's Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday and Thursday, I keep 80% open. I have meetings that our company runs in the morning time, but by 10 a.m. for literally the rest of the day, it's wide open. And Friday, I just work on whatever the heck I feel like doing. Like whatever feels good. Like if you would have had Friday open for this podcast, I would have put it on Friday because I like this stuff. It's fun to me. So I would have done that. I would have been in a good mood. It's Friday. Like, let's go knock this out. And then the weekend, kind of the same concept, right? I keep a pretty standard routine throughout the weekend, but there's some weekends where I go to the office super excited and others I don't even show up. And so, if I had a ballpark, I don't know, 40, 50, maybe somewhere in there. But it doesn't feel that way, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't even feel like I feel like I don't really work that much, honestly. So I don't know. I think that's 40, 50, depending on the week.
Sounds like a lot of this stuff, though, is just experimenting and playing with new tools. So you have your Fridays where you're probably testing the latest AI thing out, or you're working on some new campaigns or whatever Friday might bring. Yeah.
And you know what book actually taught me about that? It's called 10X is Greater Than 2X.
Great book.
It's a book by Dan Sullivan. Yeah. And, the who, not how, and then the gap in the game. That I love that whole 3-part series, but 10X versus 2X, that book was a game changer. And a lot of the stuff I just referenced were things that I've learned from that book on how to better manage your time. And it's been a game changer. Anyone listening, like I would highly recommend picking that book up.
Well, I think, you know, this kind of is getting a little closer to the end of the episode here, and you've given us a ton of really awesome input and transparency, and you know, given us a little bit of a different angle. I know we've had a lot of real estate people on the show before, but this is definitely a different conversation we've had today. Obviously, I haven't got to cover everything, so if there's a certain place that, for those who are out there listening, want to learn more about you or more about what you got going on, is there a specific place you'd like us to kind of send them to?
Sure. I mean, I'm pretty much active on Instagram, probably the most. I like to do stuff offline though. Like, you know, I like to meet people at events and, you know, actually get on a phone call and stuff like that. Not huge on the whole DM thing, but I will get back to you. Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, we will link your Instagram. We're going to link all your companies, everything you got going on. There's a lot, so people don't have to go and fish for all the links and all the spots. But dude, this was awesome. I am so thankful that our mutual friend Jesse Ray introduced us. He said you were a rock star guest. He's like, you got to have Ramon on. He's the man. He's killing it. He opened a brokerage at 23 or 24. You brought it, man. So thank you so much for your time today. This is really informative. I think our audience is going to love it.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.